Hello, everyone. So just to be upfront, we didn't hit record at the beginning of the original webinar, so we are re-recording the beginning separately. I'm so glad you are here. I am Tammy Marshall, chair of the math department at Cuyamaca College, and I'm here with Myra Snell, one of the co-founders of the California Acceleration Project. I'm also joined by three members of the math department at Cuyamaca: Terry Nichols, Lamia Raffo, and Ana Linda Arroyo. Each of them are going to be sharing some parts of this presentation. We're here to talk about Cuyamaca's work on Calculus 1 with co-requisite support. So let's get right into it. So the co-requisite support class for Calculus 1 is a 2-unit class that's linked, and the students will receive a grade in both classes. The grade in the co-requisite support class is pass, no pass only. Since the classes are taught back to back with the same teacher, instruction is blended together. Students don't know when they're in each class. Review is done in a just-in-time approach. The classroom experience is activity-based, and the co-requisite experience is emerging toward full wraparound services, helping to make sure students feel welcome, like they belong, and that they see themselves in the material. This is something that we're striving towards. That's why I said it's emerging. It's not something that we're totally there with yet. I think all of us can understand that. We're all kind of striving towards that work. So one of the things that I want to talk about just for a moment is how are students going to be placed into this and who can take this class. So this is this was an overview of the structure, how we're going to be doing it. But I also want to talk a little bit about who's going to take these classes. So right now we have students who are placed into pre-calculus, and starting in the fall semester, students are going to have the option of either taking pre-calculus or they'll be able to take this calculus with co-requisite support. And then students who place into Calculus 1 will also have the option to take this if they feel like they just would really like some review of pre-calculus. One of the things to keep in mind is that this co-requisite support class is going to just teach the material, the algebra and the trig that students need to be successful in Calculus 1. So I just want to keep that in mind with everything. But we're really super excited about the opportunity and the fact that students will be able to move into their major classes a lot quicker and get through, hopefully, Calculus 1 semester earlier. That's one of the things we're really excited. So let's talk a little bit about some design principles. If you would go to the next slide, please. Thanks. So our department is using these 4 design principles to develop all of our interactive math on Canvas courses, which includes our interactive calculus on Canvas book that we're writing, as well as the prep materials for our core requisite support class that goes with the Calculus 1 class. At this point, I'm going to pass it on to Terry, who's going to tell you how we use these design principles to develop the materials. Terry?
Hello, everybody. So I'm going to primarily talk about the first 2 design principles, where students learn in small chunks of material, practice what they just learned, and receive immediate feedback. And students receive embedded just-in-time review as needed. So both of these design principles are implemented in our textbook, which is on Canvas, and I'll show you that in just a moment, as well as in our classrooms. And Anna and Lamia will talk more about how these design principles are embedded in the classroom, but I'm going to show you how they're embedded in our textbook. So don't get dizzy. We're going to leave the presentation just for a moment. So our textbook is actually on Canvas. It's not a Canvas course that you're used to in your classes. This is actually a textbook, and how it's designed is students work through a learning content page, learn a small chunk of material, then they practice what they learn in either a homework assignment or a little Canvas quiz or some other format, and receive automatic feedback as soon as they complete the assignment. Since they have to work through the Canvas course as their textbook in sequence, they have to attempt a good faith effort on the homework assignment before they move on to the answers page. I'm going to show you one of our answers pages, not necessarily from this module, because the answers pages are where we also do just-in-time review. So keep in mind that students have worked through the homework assignment, and it's typically short, maybe 1 or 2 problems. And now that they've completed a good faith effort on the homework assignment, they're going to take a look at the answers page and get immediate feedback, as well as some just-in-time review. Here's an answers page from a different module because it had a little bit more just-in-time review. So I selected this one instead of one from the 2.1 module. This describes how students need to use the answer pages. And I believe Anna will talk about that a little bit more in her part of the presentation. But I'm going to open the solution to this second question. So you'll notice we work through a lot of steps. This is not like the solution you typically see in the back of a book. Along with each simple step, we explain what we did and why in blue. Often the blue text is just-in-time review, such as substituting values into an equation. In addition to the learning pages and practicing what they just learned in small chunks, there's investigative activities where students work through an investigation of a topic before they cover the content in the course. And then the module will wrap up with 2 forms of assessment, of summative assessments. We consider homeworks and the quizzes and all other activities preceding the checkpoints to be formative assessments, and then checkpoints are summative assessments. And you may recall from our 4 design principles that before students see a question in the formative assessment, they've practiced a similar question in one of our summative assessments. In addition to providing embedded just-in-time review through our comments on the answers pages, we also provide just-in-time review through our embedded prep modules. So this page from our first prep module describes what a prep module is about, and I'm going to hand this off to Lamia Raffo now to talk more about our prep modules.
Thank you, Terry. So now I'm going to give you a short introduction to what a prep module is. And also I'm going to show you the outline of one of the prep modules that I developed. So basically a prep module is a short module that contains multiple pages and assignments. And these covers the algebra skills and some of the core concepts that we think students might need to review in order for them to be successful in the Calculus 1 course. So now I'm gonna Anna shares the outline of one of the prep modules. It is 2.1 prep, average rate of change. So basically, it contains multiple pages. The first page always would be the review objectives page. And we include around 1 to 3. It depends, on the module that we're covering. If we need more, we would add 1 more review objective. And this page only lists those review objectives that we identify based on students' basic skills needs that we discover in the classroom when we are, with our students. And also we would have our COP meetings where we chat with our faculty. We talk about what we see, what we discover, what we identify, so that we collaborate together and then decide on what review objectives that we would need to cover in the prep module. So this is actually the review objectives page. The other thing that a prep module contains is the content page. And the content page, for instance, it is here 2 of 5. This is one of the content pages. It contains a short introduction to the topic or the concept that we are trying to review for the students. Also, it includes some videos for students to watch, take notes, practice. And in addition, it includes some examples that, of course, the example would be a question for the students to practice. And also we provide them with the full solution. And if you can click on the solution, it shows the steps. And next to each step, we kind of try to explain to the students how each step is obtained, so that, you know, they would, we want them to know how to remember things. This is our objectives of these content pages. And then we also include in a prep module some formative assessments, and they are very short and to the point. For instance, the formative assessments would be either quizzes or homework assignments. If the formative assessment is a quiz, then we provide the students with an automated answer page, and we include in this answers to their to this, like the solution, the answer key, as well as we provide feedback to the students whether their answer is correct or incorrect. We give them feedback so that they can see where their mistakes is, they can check their answers, get the feedback from their instructor, and also be able to correct the mistakes and then retake the quiz to be, you know, to raise their grade in this case, and also be able to remember how to do these type of things. If the formative assessment, so for instance here, Anna is showing the, you know, some of the responses, and this is a correct response from the instructor, and there is also a feedback if the answer was incorrect. Now, the other type of formative assessments is a homework assignment. So if you can show page 5 of 5. So you can see that we have 2 pages that are identified as page 5 of 5. The first one includes the questions to the homework assignment. So you can scroll down. So these are the questions. And then following this page that has the questions, we provide the students with an answer page. And again, this answer page is for them to help them remember how to do things. And also we include the full solution, step by step. We include a short, you know, kind of sentence next to each step to kind of tell the students or remind them on how that step is being obtained. And this would help them to be successful in the Calculus 1 because we are reviewing. And if you go back to one of the content pages, page 4 of 5, the previous one didn't have videos. It depends, of course, on, you know, sometimes we find good videos, sometimes we don't. So this one contains videos, as you can see. And so they would watch the video, take notes. We give them some instructions on what to do on that specific page. Before I end my discussion or part, I just have two notes to mention here. So the first note is that as faculty, we try to keep the prep modules as short as possible because this is part of the co-requisite course. It is not part of the main course, which is Calculus 1. The other note that I would like to mention is that we don't want to front load too much. Like if we feel that we are doing too much, then we discuss it. Do we need to do this? We keep it again short because we just need to provide the students with exactly what they need when we are with them in the classroom. Thank you. So now I'm going to hand it off to Anna, and she's going to kind of share with us one of the real life applications, and she's going to talk about students' experience in the classroom. Thank you.
Sorry about that. With all this navigation, I lost my unmute button. So before we get too far ahead, I want to make sure that these design principles, we're showing a lot of our Canvas course right now, but these design principles are infused in every aspect of the student experience in our courses. So you've seen our main design principle where we chunk up the material and students are getting immediate feedback throughout the course. So in Canvas, some pieces, feedback, some more information and knowledge, some more immediate feedback, whether it be quizzes or homeworks inside the classroom, works very similarly, right? We introduce a small concept, but we really want the students to be fully engaged. So a lot of our courses are usually, say, for example, in my course, I run it with where we do groups of three, where we introduce a topic, groups of three. So the instruction, instead of me being the main source of knowledge, it's really trying to build our learning communities within the classroom. So when we're talking about the prep modules, how do prep modules work inside the classroom? Again, our Coreq course is designed to be minimal, right? That idea that these prep modules are minimal. We just want to get enough information out there so that students are prepared for the learning that they're going to see in the module. Now, how do we handle that in the classroom? I might just either assign it, right? Assign it so the students have access to it before class. They're working through the module. Inside the class, how do we hold them accountable to that knowledge? Well, just do a small warm-up. A warm-up 5 problems. I put them in groups immediately. The students who worked on that prep module ahead of class can emerge as leaders, right, for their group members, helping guide conversations and grow the learning inside of the classroom. For students who didn't get to that prep module, they're still getting access to that information and making sure that everyone is ready to go for when we're going to start the main, right, what we call that targeted material in the calculus course. So prep modules handled more in kind of a flipped setting, sometimes warm up. And oftentimes we're like, but there's so much more that we need to have conversations about within the module itself, right, within that section. And so how do we handle that? Well, think about the types of questions that you might provide the student inside the classroom, ones that are a little bit challenging, things that they'll ask, reach, be curious about. So that usually helps kind of shake out any just-in-time review that might need to take place in class. So providing some of those dynamic problems where it really just gets students thinking, questioning, and just curious. So with the design principles, so that just-in-time feedback, they're getting that inside the classroom immediately with the conversations they're having with their group mates. Inside of Canvas, we're taking those same conversations that they're having inside the classroom into their Canvas courses. So Terry showed us or mentioned some of those let's investigate activities that don't have any front loading at all, just a little bit exploratory problems and work. So imagine inside the classroom, I might use that activity as the activity for the class, where we're just kind of exploring right before we start solidifying that concept. What's really great having the Let's Investigate still live inside of our interactive textbook on Canvas is that if a student didn't fully get it, or maybe they still needed a little more time to work it through, they have that time outside of class, and they already met and had some conversations with students inside the class to help them work through that stuff inside of Canvas. And also, like she mentioned, some peekaboo reviews. So students will still be able to access and view their classmates' work, even when they're not inside the classroom. So the very, very end, let's talk about those more summative assessments. So at the end, Terry showed us 2 types of summative assessments, the checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2, and to really showcase our 4th design principle, culturally relevant curriculum, and making sure that these practices are supporting an equity-minded teaching and learning environment. Let's go ahead and take a look at a checkpoint 2. So a checkpoint 2 type of assessment, it's a summative assessment at the very end. We definitely want to make sure that students have been exposed to similar problems within the module before this point. So right at the very end, here we have an example. And let me make sure I'm sharing my sound so we can share this clip of how we can introduce students into this type of material. So a soft entry, we go ahead and have a nice, short, sweet video kind of introducing the topic. Again, seeing the vibrant, beautiful faces and the contributions of people of color. So this one is Kazuki Corbett.
Hello, everyone. I am Kismikia Corbett, and I am the scientific lead for the coronavirus vaccine team at the National Institutes of Health in the Vaccine Research Center. I am going to tell you a little bit about everything you should know about the COVID-19 vaccines. So we all are aware that COVID-19 has caused many inequalities in healthcare. So the graph that you're seeing here shows the cases per 10,000, and you see that there is a disproportional amount of cases in minority communities like the Latino community and the Black community as compared to the white community. Hello, everyone. I am Kismikia Corbett.
So imagine a student was introduced into that small video, so it gives it a little bit of context, a little bit of background, and now here we're going to introduce the content. So students have access to real data, right? So here we show a dynamic graph where we have all of the data disaggregated by race or by ethnicity. Then we have some examples. So what do we want them to do with this data? So especially as our first one, right, as our first module of calculus, we're looking into secant slope and how that approaches tangent slope. So here we're kind of working through giving them numerical data, giving them an example to work through, the table, giving them a little background knowledge, making sure they understand the variables that are involved. They have problems where, if you notice, we give them the prompt, but we make sure it's not like the solutions are hidden from students. It just gives them a second to contemplate, possibly write some notes, try to attempt the problem before taking that peek at the solutions to check their work. So here they have a full example, walking them through step by step, finding the average rate of change on certain time intervals, slowly approaching that very end. Embedded are always going to be some instructional comments just to make sure to make any clarifying points for students. And hopefully, once they're ready, we have our formative assessment, our summative assessment at the very end, excuse me. So we just saw an example. They got to work it through, see support, get that immediate feedback. And now here on this summative assessment, they don't have access to that immediate feedback. They don't have an answers page. So it's going to be really reliant upon them to make sure that they're going to give each other feedback, whether that be in the classroom, and especially this one is a peer-reviewed assignment. So here they're accessing the same exact graph, but more data, right? So in that previous example, they focused on the white community. And here, students get to choose what do they want to investigate in this problem. Do they want to choose an ethnicity they identify with, or are they curious about these other learning communities, right? Are these other communities? So here they get to choose their own data set, whether they want to work with the indigenous data, Pacific Islander, Black, Latino, Asian, and work through a similar problem, just as they saw in that previous assignment. Now, to make sure, right? Making sure we're involving student voices into our classrooms, asking questions, even as small as saying, what do these comparisons mean to you? Give them time to reflect upon the work that they just did. What does this calculation mean? Making sure they understand it in context and also get to speak to it a little bit. So we try our best to make sure student voices are heard, as well as seeing that representation, right? So they know this is where we belong and this is what we're working on here together. So these are very great opportunities for students to give each other feedback in written form. So in class, they have that verbal interaction. And here in the summative assignment, where again, tensions can get a little high, there's no answers page, they get nervous. Now they have access to a peer review and their peers' work, where they can take a look at each other's work, give each other tips, double check calculations for each other, and again, give each other that support that they need, where they're really owning the knowledge that they're learning in this course. So with that said, how are we doing with time and questions?
We're doing great with time, sorry. There was one question that I'm going to let somebody answer live. And I don't know if this is an easy answer. And if it's not, we can put it off for something else. but and I apologize, I'm probably going to butcher your name. It's Emmeline, something along those lines anyway, asked, I'm not familiar with how to set up non-mandatory peer review in Canvas. Could you talk a little bit about what those settings are? And I'm not familiar with that either. Terry, you're muted.
Anna can just show it. Open one of our homework assignments and show that. While she's navigating to it, I'll just say this. So what we do is we just use the peer review feature. So this is an investigate activity. We just use the peer review feature, but the peer review is not, you might want to pop up in the directions too. So as you'll see in this directions section, they've got to submit their assignment, review the rubric to see what's required, submit their first draft. You take over, Anna.
Yeah, so after that first draft, so the due date will pass and automatically students will be assigned 5 peer reviews. Now it seems intense at first, so you tell the students, no, this isn't a required peer review. This gives you access to looking at other students' work and be able to give each other tips, any advice that you can share. So these peekaboo, we call them peekaboo reviews. Now setting wise, let's take a look. They get automatically assigned, and that's it, right? So that idea that you're not going to grade them to having to complete this peer review. We're just assigning this as a peer review feature. So we're taking advantage.
Go up to the directions and let them look at the directions a little bit more, and maybe not while you're editing, but from the student perspective.
So give me 1 second. Let me get rid of this, and we'll go
So
students.
what we do is we really emphasize this, like, so Anna uses this course in her face-to-face class. I use it in my online class. So I'll post announcements on the homepage. Keep in mind that investigate assignments and homework assignments are peekaboo reviews. You don't commit, you don't write a peer review. You just get to go in and peek to see what your classmates are doing. And when they're not required to write a peer review, they actually interact with each other more, because they'll ask each other questions or just say, hey, I'm comparing your work with mine. I noticed that I got this and you got that. I don't know which one of us is right. So they actually do dialogue with each other, but it's not required. And then at the end of throughout the course, we provide throughout the textbook, the Canvas textbook, wherever a student is, we try to provide directions and how to do things in Canvas at the point of student need. So to learn how to see if a student has left a comment, notice that under step 3, it says after the due date, if you cannot see any names in the list, perhaps the peekaboo reviews were automatically generated before you submitted the assignment. You can send a message to me in Canvas to let me know that there are no names, and I'll assign some. I'll just push the magic button, it'll happen. But down at the bottom of the assignment is directions to the students about, go up a little bit, about how to read their peers' comments and their instructors' comments. You need to, I don't know if your computer's frozen, Anna, but you need to go up a little bit. Now, right there, review feedback.
Sorry, it was a delay in my internet.
Okay, so notice there's a discussion board. So in everything where the student is interacting, doing some sort of practice or even a summative assessment, we always provide a link to the discussion board so they can ask each other questions. And then how we use this both in our online and face-to-face classes for the discussion boards are, if you flipped a module, you go in and look at the discussion board or take a quick peek at some of the assignments in the prep module and the calculus module to see what you want to emphasize in class. And if you want to learn how to review what your teacher has commented on in the grading or what your peers have said in the grading, there's the how to review feedback. So whenever the students submit a quiz or a homework assignment or a let's investigate assignment, there's always directions on how to do what they might need to do in Canvas. But remember, this is the textbook, not your individual Canvas course. Whatever the individual teachers do in this course, they add that into the textbook.
Terry or Anna, I'm just gonna, I know you answered this, but I want to make sure Gayatri heard the answer. And that was, she said, so if a student doesn't submit by the due date, then they won't get to see the peer reviews. They will. I just want you, if you could reiterate what you said,
Go ahead,
again, to make
take it,
sure.
Anna. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
so the peer reviews get assigned as soon as the assignment is due. So that's where we kind of make sure that in the directions, we're constantly advocating for the students to reach out to us when that happens so that we can manually assign them, right? So no student should be left out of the peer review process, especially when they want to go ahead and take a look at other students' work. So yeah, just making sure if they don't have a name, all they need to do is send us a quick message and we'll make sure that gets automatically assigned.
But when she said manually assign, I don't want you guys to get scared. Don't think
Yeah.
that I am going in to each individual student and
Yeah, there it
manually
is, right
assigning.
here. As
You
soon as you
click-
go to peer
Click
reviews,
that, and then you click the magic
Assign peer reviews.
button right there, and then poof, whoever doesn't have a peer review gets it. And so, and that does take some norming in the beginning of class, getting students to, when they don't have a peer review, particularly the checkpoint 2 assignments are required peer reviews. So, and if you have a checkpoint 2 assignment open and can go to the rubric, Anna. So the rubrics,
let me get to that rubric.
they have to do a self-evaluation and a peer review in the checkpoint 2 summative assignment, both in the face-to-face and online classes. So, so students who have submitted late, sometimes I'll go into the grade book and if they've submitted late, I'll just send them a little quick message from the, message students who haven't submitted and say, hey, don't forget to ask for a peer review when you complete this so you don't lose those points. So, but to tie this back into the support course, whenever we're building the Canvas module, which is a section in a textbook, right? It's equivalent to a section in a textbook, but it's interactive. We're thinking about what skills do we want to, prerequisite skills do we want to front load for students, and that goes into the prep module. And a prep module is built similarly to the Calc 1 modules, except for there's no checkpoint 2 assignments. And prep modules are shorter. And then what prerequisite skills do you let go and just see if students need it by what the interactions that happen in the classroom? So this is our list of, well, let me back up. And it drives all of my colleagues nuts, I produce and design better with in-flight construction, because I believe if I'm flying the plane while I'm building it, it's very clarifying about what's important, what's not important. So we don't have an exhaustive list of our review objectives for each calculus module, because we're building that list as we're flying the plane. And if I could take 1 second or a few minutes to describe what happened today. So the 3.11 module is hyperbolic functions. And while I was building the 3.11 Calc 1 module, because you've got the hyperbolic functions and the identities for the hyperbolic functions are similar to the identities for the trig functions, and the graphs of the hyperbolic functions are reminiscent to graphs of algebraic functions. Like suddenly in my mind, I'm like, and you've got to prove some identities in the some hyperbolic identities. In my mind, I was thinking that the prep module had to be all the trig identities and we had to prove the trig identities. Why? Because students may never have taken pre-calculus and, they've got to have those. And we had a 180, well, actually a phone call with Myra earlier, but then also we had a Calc 1 community of practice meeting today. And at first we convinced ourselves, yeah, that prep module needs all the trig identities in it. Well, but wait, we covered the some of the trig identities up here in module. Do you guys remember which one it was?
Yeah, 3.3,
yeah,
where we're talking about derivatives of
we have some
trigs.
trig identities there, not all of them, but some of them. So in 3.11, what do they really need to do? when they multiply e to the x times e to the x, they need to know that that's not 2e to the x, that's e to the 2x or e to the quantity e to the x squared. So after talking for an hour, we came up with one review objective that we want to front load. Products and sums involving e to the x, and e to the negative x, and that's all we need to front load for the hyperbolic functions. So I prefer to fly like that, and not to try to determine all the review objectives up front, because if you plan and do everything up front for your support course, once you get into it, you're going to have to throw most of it away, because no battle plan survives contact with the enemy, right? As soon as you get into the classroom, students are going to let you know what the real review objectives should have been. So I'm not into pre-planning too much of our review objectives. Sorry, that was a little.
No, that's okay. Anna, could you go back to the PowerPoint and show my slide, the slide that I started with, which was the structure? I want to answer a question that's in the questions, if you don't mind. The next one. Yep, that one right there. So the question, and I answered this before, but I want to kind of just reiterate some of this, because I know several of you probably had a meeting that ended right at 2 o'clock, and maybe you came late, right? And so I just want to make sure that you see this slide of with regards to the co-requisite class, the co-requisite class that goes with Calculus 1, and to answer this question about how are students placed into this class? So if a student is placed into pre-calculus, they will have the choice of taking pre-calculus by itself or taking calculus with support, in a sense, bypassing calculus or pre-calculus. Sorry, let me make sure that I said that right, or that you all understood it, because I fumbled over my words. So if a student is placed into pre-calculus, they will have the choice of taking pre-calculus or calculus with support, which is what we're kind of talking about here. If a student has taken pre-calculus in the past, just like AB 1705 says, they took pre-calculus in high school, that student is placed into calculus by itself. They are not required to take support, but they will have the choice of taking support if they want. So they can enroll in this class. And to further answer this question, we do not have any courses below pre-calculus. We do, however, have a pre-calculus with support class that students who have never had integrated math 2 or algebra 2 would take. They would take pre-calculus with support and then move on to calculus. I hope that answers the question.
Can I add something to that?
Yes, please.
So what I hear a lot when I talk about, we're students who place into pre-calculus, they get to take our Calc 1 course with support if they want to. The comment invariably is, how are you going to fit all of pre-calculus into a 2-unit support course? Well, we're not, but it's going to work. How do I know it's going to work? Because students, our lowest level placement for STEM majors is pre-calculus with support. And the support course is only 2 units. And those same teachers used to say, how are you going to fit pre-algebra and beginning algebra and intermediate algebra into 2 units? We didn't. We did 2 units of support for our pre-calculus support for our pre-calculus course. And guess what? Those students the students who took pre-calculus with support are at least equally as successful in their STEM courses and their engineering courses and their courses that the pre-calculus course eventually leads into. So we're not going to try to fit all of pre-calculus into 2 units. Right. We're going to look at what are the goals of a calculus course and what do those 2 units need to do to support students achieving those goals and achieving the learning objectives, the learning objectives for the course.
And I'm going to answer a couple more questions live. We did used to have college algebra and trigonometry, which was pre-calculus broken down into 2 courses. However, we don't anymore at the college. We do teach a trigonometry class separate, but that's because we have some career ed majors that require trig only. They don't require anything else. They require trig. And so we teach that once a year for those students. And the main reason why we didn't do that, or we don't do that anymore, is our students are more successful taking pre-calculus by itself. They're more likely to succeed and move on to calculus than if they take the two courses together, or the two courses separated. So that's how we do it now. And then, sorry, yes, I answered that question. And the other one is, yes, we do anticipate having some data. What is that data going to validate? I'm not going to say that because I don't know what the data is going to show us yet, right? But yes, we are planning to, we are big data people in our department, and so we will have lots of data. And I know
we're also going to track not just the success rates by course,
right.
How do they do when they go into STEM courses?
That's where I was going.
Outside of our department.
And that's something that we've already been doing. And so we will be tracking our students to see, not, as Terry said, not just how they did in that course, but how they do in subsequent semesters as they go through the STEM sequence. So the question is, are you also making plans for Calculus 2 Coreq support? Terry, do you want to take that one?
I am. It's just that I also want to retire. So it's kind of a tough thing. And then I also have a joke when people say, are we making plans for Calc 2 with support? Yes, I don't know if as a department, we haven't talked about it fully as a department. I'm secretly hoping for that. And we have talked about this. We are building a support course for for Calc 2. Does that mean they'll get to skip Calc 1? Probably not, but just a support course that would be embedded into the Calc 2, interactive Calc 2 on Canvas course. Absolutely, we're developing that. I'm secretly hoping for other things for Calc 2. I just don't know who's gonna do it because I'm hoping to retire.
Which sort of answers Phil's question about, sometimes there are topics in Calc 2 that aren't going to be covered then in the support for Calc 1, right? And so, yes, we are definitely looking at creating some support materials. Will it be a co-requisite course? That's the question that we've really been discussing. And right now, the answer is we don't think so, but we don't know. And we can't answer that question, right? So we're not really sure whether that will be an extra course. One of the things that we're very cognizant of is adding units to STEM students, right? It costs money. They already have a lot of units that they have to take. And so that's something that we're definitely considering as we move into, Calc 2, Calc 3 and beyond.
But the prep modules that we showed in Calc 1, we are writing prep modules for Calc 2 that will be in our interactive Calc 2 on Canvas course, but they won't be part of a co-requisite support course right now.
And thank you for bringing that up, Terry, because when we're even presenting our course, like this is truly our textbook. So even students who are taking a standalone 180, this is still the textbook. They just don't need that extra 2 hours, because what is that co-requisite support really doing for the student? It's giving them more contact time with their instructors and their peers. So that's how we're using those 2 units. We are getting to get to those conversations. We're making time to have those conversations live and in person, and also giving them some space inside of their own schedule, giving that extra 2 units so that, yeah, you can still get a full load, but then also still dedicate that time that you need to get those prerequisite skills. So even this course, students in the standalone course still need support. So it's still something that's vital to have in our textbook.
Yeah, so prep modules are in all of our standalone courses is our goal, whether it's a co-requisite support course or not. The little prerequisite algebra skills they might need, or trig skills.
I'm also going to answer really quick, and I know we're running short on time. Mallory asked this question. I answered part of it in typing, but I want to say she asked about basically a longitudinal study, and we did a longitudinal study of students who started in pre-calculus and pre-calculus with support, and how they did in Calc 1, 2, 3, our engineering and physics courses. And there was a small difference in success rates. When I say small, it was like 7 percentage point difference of those students who took pre-calc with support that were successful in Calc 1 the first time. If you look at multiple attempts in Calc 1, the difference went away. And then if you looked beyond Calc 1, there was no difference. And in some cases, and in many cases, actually, the students who took pre-calc with support were more successful than students who took pre-calc by itself. The other question that Max asked is about other remediation or review topics. I'm trying to get away from the word remediation. Sorry, that's just a personal thing. I don't like the word. And that is, you know, are there other review topics that are going to be needed in this course? Well, of course it's possible, right? We don't know. And so is there topics that we're going to need to be developing as we go? There's a very real possibility that there are. So that is definitely something that we're thinking about. And many people have added their name and email address in the Q&A, and I'm keeping track of everybody who did, who is interested in receiving a link to the box when our course is done. If you still want to add yourself, please just add your name, college, and email address, or you can email me. Anna, you want to go to the very end, and my email address is on here.
And
And
Tammy,
you can
we might
email me.
want our pre-calculus course as well.
Yeah, and that's, if you're interested in our pre-calculus course, just email and let me know as well. On that, I'm sure there's other questions I don't know that I got to, but I do want to be cognizant of the fact that it's now 3:01. Myra, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Well, I was going to offer that if you would like to, you know, I have this list of 195 people who signed up for this webinar. So that might be a list that you send the box to eventually. There might be a way that we could, without duplicating email lists, right, get the materials out to folks. All right, so I think this concludes. I want to thank the Cuyamaca team for coming and presenting today on a Friday afternoon, and for all the incredibly hard work that they are obviously doing and willing to share, which has always been their MO, and we have all benefited from it. So I wish everybody a good weekend, and we will sign off. Thank you.
Thank you. Myra, can you keep it going? I'm going to hit pause, stop, but can you keep it on for a second? I want to grab some things out of the Q&A.
And can we go bye-bye now?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Okay.